So during COVID lockdown, I felt very privileged to be living around here because I just walked and walked and walked. But it was lovely because more and more people walked along these pathways and everybody greeted each other. So you didn't feel totally alone when you were out walking. I was lucky enough to get my first artistic commission through a COVID grant, and it all came out of the fact that as I was walking along this pathway, I started really thinking about what nature could be teaching us because of the lockdown. And I was finding little notes from all sorts of people on stones or tree stumps to encourage people. And it was lovely. So I started thinking, okay, so those are humans talking to each other, but what would nature say to us in this situation? Because there's a lot of people believe that the whole lockdown thing was nature actually trying to tell us to slow down and to stop abusing the countryside and the air and everything. So I called my project Wild Wisdom. And this wooden fence, which is now metal, completely different, had Welcome to Wild Wisdom on it. And then the trail, the poetry trail, consisted of 8 poems along round about half a kilometre along this little road between 2 intersections. So in the early summer of 2020, when I was walking down this pathway, all of this is overgrown and full of greenery, but there were dandelions coming through, and dandelions are such a sunny plant. They always represented hope and happiness to me. I bring golden sunshine to the darkest places. There are positives in lockdown. Just search. So what I found out about hawthorn was they have male and female parts in the same plant, so they're able to fertilise themselves. So I decided to write a poem regarding diversity from the hawthorn. Hawthorn, male and female. I am diversity. Be yourself and make the world shine for all. So again, during the early summer of 2020, I noticed that this whole area, right down to the edge, was covered with nettles. And as there were so many people dying of COVID and getting ill, when I did the research for the nettles, it seemed that it was really good for long-term illness. So I decided to write the poem from the nettles to reflect the need to make tea for healing. Take me home and prepare some tea for strength. So in English culture, I've always been aware that we think of the oak as being the strongest and most steadfast tree in the forest. And when walking along here, it's overgrown a bit now, but you can see that the branches come down like arms. And I had an idea that you could shelter underneath and almost hide from the world. I'm steadfast and true. Under my branches you're secure, always. This was a very sunny part of the path, and you'd see butterflies, mainly cabbage white, but occasionally red admirals and all sorts, just dancing around this area. And so I wanted to use that as a poem from a cabbage white butterfly. And I had always believed growing up that they only lived for 24 hours. I haven't checked, I don't know. But I also found out in my research that they very often represented the meeting of earth and spirit, and they represented the souls of the dead coming to give a message to the living. I'm both earth and spirit. I carry messages of hope from those who've passed away to you. So we're coming to the end of the trail now, and during that summer there were a lot of snails on this bank, and you can see actually a couple of the empty shells now. And we all know that snails are slow, so I took it as a message from the snails that we should slow down, and COVID was giving us that time to slow down. Slow down, you now have space, a precious gift from God. It's time to focus on yourself for once. So we've just had a robin singing to us, and he just leapt over to just behind me, but unfortunately he's not jumped onto the fence yet. This was a wooden fence and marked the end of my poetry trail. And when I did research about robins, they always represented new growth, renewal, and going forward with a very positive attitude. Listen to my warbling. I bring new life and hope. To celebrate, join in with me. Let's sing. So this was the first poem, and it was from ivy. And when I researched ivy, it symbolised tenacity and friendship and fidelity and affection. Like mine, your roots are strong. Wrap them around your loved ones and trust that this will all be over soon. Stay safe. So this place is totally wild now. In the 1970s, it was still the site of an ironworks, and it closed down in the 1970s. Now, it's been here for about, well, at least 200 years to my knowledge, and it made iron for the Eiffel Tower, for the Titanic, because this is the old ironworks, and once the factories closed, nature just took over, and it's now a natural site. And now, well, certainly since the pandemic, a lot of it that has overgrown has become walking places for all the locals and quite a few people from further afield who travel here now. For me, it was looking at how plants and medicines work together. So I'm now doing a lot of research into what I call plant prejudice, because I have neighbours that tell me to rip up all the weeds, and I'm saying, what makes you think they're weeds? And the whole conversation came out of that, and that's where the whole project came from. So I spend my time researching the plants that she wants to rip up and saying, look, you could actually help this condition with that and everything. So I'm just doing a zine at the moment around that theme, and we'll see what comes out of it. During COVID particularly, I was really lonely, but I would literally, if I felt lonely, I used to come out into nature because I could talk to the plants and animals, and yes, I am probably a bit dotty, but especially for me with my research into my mother's culture. She was indigenous Peruvian, and I was absolutely fascinated with the fact that that culture believes that plants, animals and humans are all equal and all part of nature. So I regard nature as my friends. So I was able to talk to them, and that's kind of where the whole poetry project came from.